Hey Collective Youth, for today's Daily Devo, we were in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, and Paul is responding to some questions about Christ being resurrected and what happens to us when we die. Do we get resurrected as well? And so we don't know exactly the letter that Paul is responding to, but based on what he's writing about, we can tell that this is something that was on the people's hearts. And so at the beginning of verse 15, he talks about Christ being resurrected. And then when he's talking about surely Christ was resurrected, that's the whole thing of how everyone got brought into the covenant. That's the thing, how Gentiles were able to become under the covenant of God. It was because of Christ's death. And in verse 17, he says, "And if Christ has not been raised, your faith is futile, and you are still in your sins. And those who have fallen asleep or passed away in Christ have perished. If in Christ we have hope in this life only, we are of all people most to be pitied. But in fact, Christ has been raised from the dead." Paul says if Christ hasn't been resurrected from the dead, then our faith is pointless. The things we're talking about, the things we're doing, if Christ was not resurrected from the dead, then none of it matters because we are still a slave to our sin. Because in Christ's death, he defeated death, and if we know that Christ was resurrected, then we know he has the power to resurrect us to be with him forever in heaven. And so this is a super interesting thing, and this is something that is kind of hard for people to think about when we think about like what happens to us when we die. Can we have that assurance? Paul is here encouraging us that, hey, if Christ did not get resurrected, then your faith is futile. But have no fear, because Christ has been resurrected. And Paul is a firsthand experience of seeing the first fruits and seeing the fruits that has come from that. And so guys, that is all we have for you today. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow.